Have you ever wondered why a fire flares up so fiercely and then dies out overnight? We're told that motivation is key. But what if I told you that motivation is a fickle, unreliable guest? Have you ever stood still in the middle of your life and felt an unbridgeable gap between who you are and who you know you can be? A void made up of unfulfilled dreams, unkept promises, and a massive amount of dormant potential. If the answer is yes, then this video and the entire journey we're about to take together is for you. This isn't a video about quick tips or quick motivational pills. This is a map, a detailed map for you to take on the most important journey of all, the journey of reinventing yourself. Our journey begins with a brutal yet liberating truth. Together, we will shatter the biggest illusion that holds you back, the illusion of waiting for a savior. You will discover that the moment you realize no one is coming to save you is the moment you are truly free to act. Once we have that freedom, we will come face to face with the first of our inner enemies, the thief of humanity's sweetest dreams. We will expose the seductive lie of procrastination, the promise of tomorrow, and learn to overcome it, not by sheer will, but by decisive action. Next, we'll bust one of the most dangerous words ever, the word potential. You'll understand why potential without action is nothing, and why the world rewards those who take action, not those who merely possess potential. To turn your potential into reality, you must learn to reclaim all your power. We're going to talk about becoming the captain of your ship, about claiming 100% responsibility, not as a burden, but as a privilege, an act of ultimate self-empowerment. Once you're truly behind the wheel, you'll discover the unchanging law of greatness. It's not inspiration or talent, but the quiet power of repetition. You'll learn that every small, consistent action is a vote for who you want to become. From there, you'll build the most powerful foundation of success: self-confidence. Not a borrowed confidence, but a muscle built from within through hundreds of small promises kept to yourself. And to sustain that practice, you need a set of rules. We'll redefine discipline not as a prison, but as the ultimate form of freedom, freeing you from the bondage of your emotions and habits. We'll learn how to design intelligent systems, focus on daily processes rather than obsessing over distant destinations, and sign a steel-clad contract with your future self. Along the way, you will inevitably encounter challenges. You will learn to face them with new wisdom. You will learn to accept what you cannot change and release the emotional baggage from the past that is draining you. You will learn to see failure not as a judgment, but as an invaluable data set. And then, with all those tools, lessons, and experiences, we come to the most crucial part, the art of sculpting. You will understand that you do not find yourself, but rather build yourself through every action and every decision. Finally, to gain clarity for that work of creation, we will discover the regenerative power of silence, of finding answers in a noisy world. All of that, all of those steps, are building to lead you to a single moment. The moment without which all of your preparation is meaningless. The moment of power, the moment of action, the moment of now. It will be a challenging journey, but I promise you that if you make it to the end, the person who emerges on the other side will not be the same person you are today. Are you ready to get started? We've discussed the power of consistency, emphasizing the importance of repetition in building character. But there's a more important question to answer. Where does the initial motivation come from? What fuels those persistent actions? The answer lies in a truth that most of us shy away from, a truth that may feel lonely at first, but will set you free forever. Are you waiting for something? Are you waiting for the perfect opportunity to come knocking at your door? Waiting for a wise teacher to go and show you the way? Or waiting for a sign from the universe, a letter of approval that says, "Okay, it's your turn. Go for it"? I want you to take a deep breath and listen carefully to what I'm about to say, because it will be the foundation for everything you build on. Number 1, will come. There is no cavalry on the way to rescue you from your current situation. No angel investor will suddenly show up and hand you a check just because you have a great idea. No savior will come and live your life for you. The moment you truly accept this stark truth, the moment you look in the mirror and understand that the only person who has the power to change your life is looking back at you, that is not a moment of despair. It was a moment of ultimate liberation. It's the moment when all the invisible chains, the chains of waiting, of dependence, of needing permission, fall apart. Because when you realize that no one is coming to save you, it means you don't have to wait for anyone. You don't have to ask anyone for permission. You have complete freedom to act. Immediately, you have every right to start that project. You have every right to make mistakes. You have every right to look foolish when you try something new. You have every right to fail miserably. Then pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start over with a valuable lesson learned. Napoleon Hill devoted his life to studying the world's most successful individuals, and he discovered one thing in common. They were all self-starters. They didn't wait. They decided. He wrote in his classic, "The starting point of all achievement is desire." Always remember this. Weak desire produces weak results, just as a small fire produces but little warmth. But that desire must be combined with an unshakable determination, a determination that you are the one who will make that desire a reality. Look at Andrew Carnegie. He came to America from Scotland with nothing, a poor boy working in a cotton mill. No one came and handed him a steel empire. No savior rolled out the red carpet for him. He saw opportunity where others saw only drudgery. He educated himself, trained himself, and made bold decisions independently. He declared his freedom from poverty, not with words, but with relentless action. He was the captain of his ship. Or look at Oprah Winfrey. Born into abject poverty in rural Mississippi, facing trauma no child should have to endure. Who came to her rescue? No one. She found solace in books. She discovered the power of her voice. She won a scholarship. She went into radio, where she was told she wasn't fit for television. She declared her freedom from her tragic past and became one of the most powerful women in the world. She didn't wait for permission to shine. She created her light. Those people, and thousands of others like them, understood one core principle. The universe doesn't reward those who wait. The universe rewards those who act. The moment you stop looking for external validation and start listening to your inner voice, you activate a powerful force. It is the power of self-mastery. Napoleon Hill calls it becoming the master of your destiny, the captain of your soul. You stop being a passenger on the ship of life and take the wheel. No matter how stormy the journey, no matter how difficult it may be, at least you know that you are the one who decides the direction. So, today, stand in front of the mirror and make that declaration. Declare that you will stop waiting. Declare that you will permit yourself to do so. Declare that you are the person you are looking for. This liberation is terrific. It feels like you can conquer the world. But just as you declare your independence, just as you are about to take the first steps on the road to freedom, an enemy appears. It is not an external enemy. It is much more subtle. It is a thief of your sweetest dreams. a silent saboteur that whispers in your ear with your voice. It is the seductive promise of tomorrow. You stood in front of the mirror and made a declaration of your absolute freedom. You felt a surge of power as you realized that you didn't have to wait for anyone. But just as the fire of determination was ignited, a shadow crept silently towards you. It does not carry a sword. It does not roar. It approaches you softly in your voice and whispers into your ear the most seductive lie ever told. Later. Start tomorrow. This is your biggest enemy. Not the doubters, not the difficult circumstances, but the sweet voice of procrastination. It is a master thief. It does not take your money or possessions. It takes something far more precious, your time and your potential. Later is a false fairyland, a comfortable graveyard where a billion great dreams are buried. Every time you say later, you are throwing another shovel of dirt on the coffin of your ambition. Procrastination is a sugar-coated poison. It provides you with short-term comfort, but it will ultimately cost you long-term regret, a debt that time can never erase. Why do we do this? Why do we sabotage ourselves? Procrastination is not laziness. Understand that. Procrastination is a symptom. The real disease is much deeper. It is fear. It is the fear of failure, the fear that your efforts will go nowhere. It is the fear of judgment, the fear that others will laugh at your clumsy initial efforts. And sometimes, ironically, it is also the fear of success, the fear that you will not be able to handle the new responsibilities and expectations that come with victory. All of these fears are disguised as something that seems perfectly reasonable. Caution. I need more time to research. I need a better plan. Now is not the right time. These are all elaborate lies that fear tells you to keep you safe in your narrow comfort zone. Napoleon Hill called this one of the greatest demons that stand in the way of success. He called it the habit of hesitation. He wrote, "Hesitation is the child of fear. Remember this, and you will win." Hesitation crystallizes into doubt, and the two merge, becoming fear. The process is very slow. That is why these demons are so dangerous. Consider the story of one of France's greatest writers, Victor Hugo. While he was writing his masterpiece, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, he fell into a terrible procrastination trap. He was distracted by parties, and constantly pushed back his publisher's deadline. Finally, the publisher gave him an ultimatum: finish the book within 6 months or face a heavy fine. What did Victor Hugo do? He knew that his willpower was insufficient to resist temptation. So, he did something drastic. He ordered his servants to collect all his clothes, from his coats and shoes to his formal suits, and lock them in a large trunk. He left only a giant woolen shawl. That way, he could not leave the house without looking like a madman. He created a prison for himself, a prison where the only option was to sit at his desk and write. And it was in that voluntary confinement that one of the greatest masterpieces of world literature was completed. Victor Hugo understood a profound truth. To defeat the demon of procrastination, sometimes you have to eliminate the option of inaction. You don't have to lock up your clothes, but you do have to find your own chest. It's as simple as turning off your phone and disconnecting from the internet for 2 hours a day. It could be as simple as posting your goals to a friend to create accountability. It could be adopting the 5-minute rule: start doing something for 5 minutes. That small action will break the inertia and build momentum. Don't negotiate with procrastination. Please don't argue with it. Because you are a master negotiator, you will always come out on the losing end. The only way to beat it is to act immediately, to act decisively, to act before your brain has time to invent a good reason for not doing anything. Every time you beat procrastination, even in the smallest of ways, you're not just completing a task. You're sending a powerful message to yourself. I'm in charge. I act on decisions, not emotions. Because if you don't overcome this inner enemy, if you let the promise of later poison your days, you will have to face a truth that is more painful than failure. It's the harsh truth of wasted potential, of the great person you could have been, but never had the chance to be. We have just exposed our biggest inner enemy, the demon of procrastination, who whispers sweet promises of tomorrow in our ears. But have you ever stopped and wondered what it is stealing from us? What is the ultimate price we pay every time we say later? The answer lies in one of the most dangerous, seductive, and delusional words in the human vocabulary: potential. People tell you that you have potential. Teachers, family, and friends look at you and say, "This kid has so much potential." And it feels great. It feels like you're holding a winning lottery ticket in your hands. But here's the harsh truth, a truth you must take to heart. Potential, standing alone, is worthless. The potential that remains unfulfilled is nothing. It is a check that has never been signed. It is the best seed that has never been planted. It is the greatest symphony that has ever been played. It is an empty promise that you make to yourself. The world does not run on potential. The world does not give medals for potential. The world does not pay for potential. The world only recognizes, rewards, and pays for work done. Napoleon Hill spent his life interviewing over 500 of America's most successful people. He found that they all had one thing in common. They were doers. They didn't sit around with good ideas. They turned those ideas into tangible empires. Hill wrote, "Action is the true measure of intelligence. You can be the most intelligent person in the room, but if you don't act on it, your intelligence is just a decoration in your brain." The scariest thing is not failure. Failure is just a stop on the road to success, an opportunity to learn and grow. The most frightening thing, the greatest tragedy in a person's life, is not death. It is dying with all your talents and abilities still intact. It is reaching the end of the road, looking back, and seeing a cemetery filled with ideas never tried, books never written, companies never built, and a greater version of yourself that never had a chance to be born. Consider the story of Harland Sanders, who the world later knew as Colonel Sanders, the founder of KFC. At 65, he was a failure by every social standard. He was living on a meager welfare check, and all he had was a recipe for fried chicken. Did he have potential? Absolutely. The vast potential was in that secret formula. Did that pay his bills? Number, did that potential earn him respect? Number, that potential was just a good idea, like the millions of other good ideas that die every day. And so, he did something most people his age would never do. He took action. He loaded his cooking equipment into his old car and set off on his journey. He knocked on doors at restaurants across America, offering to cook his chicken for them to taste. Can you imagine? A 65-year-old man sleeping in his car, living on frugal meals, and facing rejection after rejection. Doors slammed in his face. People laughed at him. People told him he was too old to start. People said his idea was crazy. How many times was he rejected? 10 times? 100 times? The recorded number is 1,009 times. 1,909 no's. What kept him going? It wasn't the illusion of potential. It was an unwavering belief, a burning desire to turn that potential into reality. He turned each rejection into fuel. And on the 1010th, he got the first yes. The rest, as they say, is history. Colonel Sanders' story is a powerful example. Your potential plus procrastination equals 0. Your potential, combined with persistent action despite rejection, creates empires. So stop being complacent about your potential. The potential is not an achievement, it's a responsibility. It's a debt you owe to your future self. And the only way to repay that debt is through daily action, no matter how small or difficult. Because if you don't, if you let your potential lie dormant, you'll be faced with a painful question at the end of your life. What if I had tried? And that's a question no one wants to answer. So, how can we prevent this tragedy from happening to us? How do we turn potential from an abstract concept into a concrete outcome? It starts with a fundamental step, a shift in thinking, an act of reclaiming all the power that has been taken away. It begins with you standing up, looking at your life, and declaring that you are 100% responsible for it. We have just faced a brutal truth, a silent tragedy of wasted potential, of a greater version of ourselves that is at risk of never being born. The question is, how do we ensure that tragedy will not be the story of our lives? How do we light the fire of action and keep it burning? The answer doesn't lie in some complicated technique or some mystical secret. It lies in a fundamental shift in thinking, a single action that can take back all the power you've unwittingly given to others. Imagine your life as a ship on the vast ocean. Up until now, you've let other people be your captain. You've let their opinions dictate your course of action. You've let circumstances, the economy, the past, and your critics steer you. You've been a passenger on your ship, drifting passively on waves you can't control, praying that the winds will blow you to a safe harbor. But today, that will end. The moment you step onto the bridge, put your hands on the wheel, feel its stability, and declare to yourself, to the universe, from now on, I am 100% responsible for every voyage, every storm, every destination. That is the moment you truly become the master of your destiny. Listen carefully. Taking 100% responsibility is not about blaming yourself. It is not about beating yourself up for past mistakes. The blame game, whether it is blaming others or yourself, is a game played by losers. Taking 100% responsibility is about self-empowerment. It's about saying, yes, the economy may be tough, but I'm responsible for finding a way to thrive. Yes, I may have had a rough past, but I'm responsible for healing and building a better future. Yes, other people may have mistreated me, but I'm responsible for how I responded and not letting that define me. See the difference? One is the victim mindset, always looking for someone or something to blame. The other is the creator mindset, always looking for an opportunity to take action. Napoleon Hill referred to this as the fundamental principle of all achievement. He wrote in his masterpiece, "You are the master of your destiny, the captain of your soul, because you have the power to control your thoughts." That power is only activated when you stop giving control to external factors and realize that every outcome in your life stems from your thoughts, decisions, and actions. Look at Jack Ma's life. Today, we know him as a billionaire, the founder of the giant Alibaba. But his path was paved with rejections. He failed the university entrance exam 3 times. After graduating, he applied for 30 jobs and was rejected each time. He wanted to be a police officer. They said, "You're not qualified." He and 4 friends applied to KFC when they first came to China. 24 people were accepted, and 23 were hired. But he was the only one rejected. What could he have done? He could have blamed the education system. He could have blamed his looks. He could have blamed bad luck. He could have accepted himself as a victim of circumstances and lived an ordinary life. But he didn't. He took 100% responsibility. "These rejections don't define me," he says. "They're just data. They tell me that this path isn't for me, and I have to create my path." He saw an opportunity that no one else saw: the internet. In a world where no one in China believed in e-commerce, he gathered 17 friends in his small apartment and started Alibaba. He had no money, no technology, no connections. All he had was a vision and an iron determination that he was solely responsible for making that vision a reality. He was the captain. When you accept 100% responsibility, something magical happens. You stop wasting energy on complaining and blaming. All that energy is redirected into finding solutions. Your mind shifts from, "Why is this happening to me?" mode to, "What can I do to change this?" mode. You take back your power from your circumstances. You become the cause rather than the effect. So, right now, take a look at your life. Are there any areas where you're playing the blame game? Health, finances, relationships, career? Make a decision, a non-negotiable decision. From this moment on, you will take 100% responsibility. No excuses, no complaints, just action and results. Once you've taken the wheel, once you've claimed sovereignty over your ship, a new question arises. Okay, I'm the captain. Now, what do I do? To steer your ship to success, you do not need complicated commands. You need only one command, repeated every day. The supreme law that governs all greatness. You've taken the helm. You've put your hands on the wheel and claimed ownership of the ship of your life. It feels great, right? But now the real question begins. Where do I steer this ship? And how do I steer it? Many will tell you that you need a favorable wind, a great inspiration to propel your ship. Inspiration is hailed as a goddess, a muse that inspires moments of creativity to create miracles. But today, please think about that. Inspiration is a false god. It is a wind, fickle and unpredictable. It may visit you today and leave tomorrow without saying goodbye. You cannot build a fantastic voyage on an unreliable wind. The foundation of all greatness, the foundation of all lasting achievement, is built on something much more mundane and somewhat boring: repetition. This is an iron law of the universe. You are what you do every day, not what you think you will do, not what you say you will do, but what you do over and over again, regardless of how you feel. Think about it this way: every consistent action you take, no matter how small or boring, is a vote for who you want to become. Every morning you wake up, you're casting a vote for a disciplined person. Every time you sit down to write a page, you're casting a vote for writer. Every time you treat someone with kindness, you're casting a vote for a kind person. A single vote may not mean much. However, hundreds of votes or thousands of votes cast consistently will create a landslide election. They will give you a new identity, one that is solid and unshakable. Napoleon Hill referred to this process as the power of habit. He understood that repeated thoughts and actions become ingrained in your subconscious and become part of who you are. He wrote, "Any idea, plan, or purpose can be ingrained in your mind by the repetition of thought. Repetition of action is the most potent way to ingrain those thoughts." Let's look at an example, not from the business world, but from the world of creativity, where it's often mistakenly assumed that everything comes from inspiration. Look at Stephen King, the king of horror. Many people think King is a genius whose brilliant ideas came to him in his dreams. But is he? The truth is that Stephen King is a consistency machine. He has an unbreakable rule: write 2,000 words a day, every day of the year. He writes on his birthday. He writes on Christmas Day. He writes on Independence Day. He once said, "Talent is cheaper than salt." What separates the talented from the successful is a lot of hard work. He didn't wait for inspiration. He sat down at his desk every morning and began. He saw writing not as a high art, but as a job, a discipline. And it was through this monotonous repetition, day in and day out, that he created a body of work that has defined a literary genre and haunted millions of readers around the world. His career wasn't built on a single flash of brilliance. It was built on thousands of mornings, millions of words painstakingly typed. He didn't just try to write. He was a writer, and he proved it through his daily actions. That's the power of repetition. It turns an amateur into a professional. It turns a habit into an identity. Want to be a great leader? Start repeating the actions of listening and making decisions every day. Want to be physically fit? Start repeating the actions of exercising and eating right every day. Want to be an expert in your field? Start repeating the actions of learning and practicing every day. Don't underestimate these small actions. Napoleon Hill taught, "If you cannot do great things, do small things in a great way." Doing a small thing in a significant way is about doing it consistently, with the utmost focus and determination, day in and day out. This process may not be celebrated. There will be days when you feel completely bored. There will be days when you wonder if all this quiet effort is going anywhere. But trust me, it's in that repetition that the magic happens. It's not just honing your skills on the outside. It's building something significant on the inside. It's building a special muscle, an invisible muscle that's the foundation for all other outstanding achievements. It's the muscle of confidence. We've talked about the ultimate law of greatness. Repetition is king. We've seen how consistent, even dull, actions can create masterpieces and build empires. But when you repeat those actions day after day, something even greater is happening. It's not just honing your skills on the outside. It's building something significant on the inside. It's building a special muscle, an invisible muscle, but one that's the foundation for every other outstanding achievement. It's the muscle of self-confidence. Let go of any preconceived notions you have about confidence. Self-confidence is not a fleeting emotion. It is not loud arrogance or boastful self-esteem. It is not something you can think positively into. Self-confidence is a muscle. And like any muscle, it can only be trained, not given. It weakens with neglect and strengthens with exercise. Where is this muscle gym? It's not in an expensive fitness center. It's in your mind, and it's called the commitment gym. And the workout units, the weights you lift every day, are the promises you keep to yourself. Every time you promise to wake up at 5 a.m. and you get out of bed instead of hitting the snooze button, you've just done a rep for your confidence muscle. Every time you promise to complete a difficult task for the day and you do it, you've just done another rep. Every time you promise to say no to a bad habit, a temptation, and you stick to your guns, that's another rep. Conversely, every time you break a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you are causing that muscle to atrophy. You are sending yourself a message that says, "My word is not trustworthy. My commitments do not carry weight." True confidence is not loud. It is a quiet certainty. It is the peace you feel when you know that when you decide to do something, it will be done because you have hundreds and thousands of past proofs that you are a man of your word. It is born from hundreds of small promises kept. Napoleon Hill called this the principle of autosuggestion in its most potent form. He said, "Self-confidence is the first requisite of great undertakings. However, this self-confidence does not stem from standing in front of a mirror and reciting empty words. It comes from providing irrefutable proof to your subconscious mind. Every promise kept is proof. You are proving to yourself that you are trustworthy, that you are strong, that you are capable. Consider the life of arguably the most outstanding athlete of all time, Michael Jordan. His story doesn't begin with unparalleled natural talent. It starts with a bitter defeat. He was cut from his high school basketball team. What could he have done? He could have believed that judgment. He could have given up. Instead, he turned that pain into fuel. He entered his own commitment gym. While everyone else went home, Jordan stayed in the gym, making hundreds of reps. Every shot in that empty gym wasn't just an exercise in skill. It was a rep for his confidence muscle. Every drop of sweat was an affirmation. I won't let failure define me. Every time he pushed himself to do just a little more, he was keeping a promise to himself to be the best. So when he stood on the field, in front of millions of people, in the final seconds of a decisive game, his historic shot was not a fluke. It was the inevitable result of thousands of hours of practice, of thousands of promises kept in the gym. His confidence was not arrogance. It was an absolute certainty, built on an unbreakable foundation of evidence. He knew he was going to make the shot because he had done it 1,000 times before. You can build that certainty too. Start small. Avoid setting unrealistic goals that you fail at, as this can damage your self-confidence. Start with a small promise that you know you can keep. Today, I will read 10 pages of a book, and do it. Today, I will not complain, and do it. Accumulate small victories. Each victory is a brick. Hundreds of bricks will build a wall of confidence, a wall that no criticism, no temporary defeat can penetrate. Once you've built this internal muscle, you'll realize something. To consistently hit the commitment gym, to consistently keep your promises to yourself, you need a set of rules and a structure for your life. Many people are afraid of this structure. They think it is a prison, a confinement that will take away their freedom. But the truth is quite the opposite. That structure, that set of rules, is the path to true freedom. We've discussed building confidence and how every promise you keep to yourself is a lift in the gym of commitment. However, to consistently go to that gym and keep your promises to yourself, you need something. You need a set of rules, a structure for your life. And when we hear the words rules or structure, many of us cringe. We hear the word discipline and immediately picture a prison, a confinement, a harsh warden who will take away all our joy and freedom. Today, I want you to discard that image because it is one of the biggest lies holding you back from reaching your potential. Redefine discipline. Discipline is not punishment. It is not restraint. It is freedom in its purest and most potent form. How is that possible? Because it is freedom from a much worse prison, the prison of your own emotions and habits. It is freedom from the whims of the moment. Freedom from the tyranny of the weak part of you that always wants to take shortcuts, always wants to sleep in a little longer, always wants to give up when things get tough. Self-discipline is the steel spine that keeps your long-term vision steady against the storms of short-term temptation. A person without discipline, who appears to be free, is enslaved. He is a slave to his mood. If he is happy today, he works. If he is sad today, he gives up. He is a slave to his cravings. A piece of cake, an hour of social media can easily steal his goals. He is a slave to comfort. He does not do what needs to be done, but only does what he wants to do. Is that freedom? Or is it the most subtle form of slavery? A disciplined person, on the other hand, is genuinely free. He is his own master. He determines his actions based on his chosen values and goals, not on fleeting emotions. He can say no to temptations because he is saying yes to a greater version of himself in the future. Napoleon Hill considered self-control as one of the most essential principles on the road to success. He wrote, "He who cannot master himself can master nothing." A lack of discipline will render all your knowledge, all your plans, and all your talents useless, like a ship without a pilot, drifting aimlessly in the ocean. Take a look at the world's toughest soldiers, the ones whose life and death depend on discipline, the U.S. Navy SEALs. And take a look at one of their icons, Jocko Willink, a former SEAL commander. His philosophy is encapsulated in 3 simple yet powerful words: discipline equals freedom. For Jocko, discipline is not a burden. It is a liberating tool. He wakes up at 4:30 every morning. Why? Because when he finishes his workout before the rest of the world is awake, he has won the day. He has freedom from rush, the freedom to plan his day, rather than reactively react to it proactively. When on the battlefield, discipline is not meant to constrain soldiers. Rather, it is intended to inspire them. Discipline in weapons, discipline in tactics, and discipline in following orders are what give them the freedom to act effectively, the freedom to improvise in chaotic situations, and most importantly, the freedom to survive and bring their comrades home. When you have financial discipline, you save and invest consistently. Is that restrictive? In the short term. However, it provides you with freedom from debt, freedom from worrying about money, and ultimately, the freedom to choose work you love, not work you have to do to survive. When you have discipline in your studies and work, you complete the critical tasks first. Is that difficult? Sure. But it gives you freedom from the pressure of deadlines, freedom to have leisurely evenings and weekends with your family, and freedom that comes from the respect and trust of your colleagues and superiors. Discipline is the act of loving your future self. Every time you choose discipline over temporary comfort, you are sending a gift to the person you will become. So stop seeing discipline as your enemy. See it as your strongest ally. See it as the armor that protects you from your weakness. See it as the lighthouse that keeps your ship on course in the darkest night. Once you have accepted discipline as a path to freedom, you will need a blueprint, a detailed plan for how to apply that discipline most effectively. Because discipline without a clear system is like a soldier with a will, but no battle map. This brings us to the following important principle, one that will completely change the way you look at setting and achieving goals. We have just redefined discipline, not as a prison, but as a path to true freedom. But discipline, standing alone, is like a soldier with an iron will, but no battle map. He may be firm, but he doesn't know where to go or what to do. So, what is your map? Most of us were taught that the map is the goal. Set big goals, smart goals, and inspirational goals. And that's true. Goals are important. They give you a direction, a beacon in the distance. But here's a truth that can completely change the way you operate. Focusing on your goals alone isn't enough. Sometimes it can be counterproductive. Why? Because a goal is like a destination on a map. It's great, but it doesn't tell you how to drive. It doesn't tell you when to get gas or when to turn left or right. The system is the car. The system is the road. The system is your daily gas filling routine. A goal is the result you want to achieve. A system is the process you follow to achieve that result. If you are a coach, your goal is to win a championship. Your system is what your team does at practice every day. If you are a writer, your goal is to write a book. Your system is the writing schedule you follow every week. And here's the problem with focusing solely on goals. It creates a vicious cycle of happiness. You tell yourself, when I reach my goal, I'll be happy. This means you're postponing your happiness to some distant future. And all along the way, you feel like a failure because you're not there yet. But when you focus on your system, you win every day. You don't have to wait until you finish your book to feel like a writer. You are a writer the moment you sit down and follow your writing system that day. Happiness and fulfillment come from executing the process, not from achieving the outcome. Napoleon Hill, while emphasizing the importance of a definite major objective, also spoke of the need for a definite plan. He wrote, "Create a definite plan for the realization of your desire and begin immediately, whether you are ready or not, to put this plan into practice." That definite plan is your system. It is the tangible bridge between your desire and reality. Take a look at the life of one of America's founding fathers, an inventor, a diplomat, a writer, and an icon of wisdom and self-improvement, Benjamin Franklin. Franklin didn't just set out to become a virtuous man. That's too vague a goal. Instead, he created a system, a genius system for cultivating himself. He identified 13 virtues that he wanted to perfect, from temperance and silence to order and modesty. Here was his system. Every week, he would focus exclusively on practicing a single virtue. He would create a small notebook marking the 13 virtues and the 7 days of the week. Every time he violated a virtue during the day, he would put a black dot in the corresponding box. His goal was to have a clean, unmarked page. He didn't achieve perfection. However, by following this system day after day, week after week, he found himself becoming a better and happier person. He wasn't obsessed with perfection. He was obsessed with the daily process of practice and follow through. That system transformed him from a school dropout into one of the most influential figures in history. That's the difference. Don't be obsessed with becoming a millionaire. Be obsessed with building a sales and marketing system that works every day. Don't be obsessed with getting 1 million subscribers. Be obsessed with creating one valuable, consistent video every week. When your system is set up correctly, the goal is achieved automatically. It becomes a natural byproduct of a well-executed process. You don't have to worry about the finish line because you know that every step you take is bringing you closer to it. So, sit down today. Look at your big goal. Ask yourself, what system will help me achieve this goal? What actions can I take every day, over and over again, to make that goal a reality? Be an architect of progress. Design your system. A system you can trust. A system you can execute. Once you have a solid system in place, you will feel a newfound confidence. But there will be days when, no matter how perfect your system is, you don't want to implement it. There will be days when the weak side of you comes out and wants to break the process. In those days, a system alone wasn't enough. You needed something more substantial. You needed an unbreakable commitment, a steel-clad contract you signed with your future self. You have become an architect of progress. You have designed a system, a blueprint, to navigate your ship to success. But then, one morning, you wake up. The sky is gray, your body is tired, and your perfect system looks like an insurmountable mountain. On those days, systems are not enough. Discipline is not enough. On those days, You need something even stronger. You need a contract. Not just any contract. A contract of steel you sign with your future self. Understand this. Inspiration is what gets you started. It is the first wind that fills your sails. But only commitment will get you through the journey. Commitment is the engine that keeps going even when the wind is calm. A commitment is a solemn contract. Party A is who you are today. Party B is the excellent version of you aspire to be in the future. And the most important clause, the clause written indelibly in that contract, is, I will do the work, especially on the days I least want to do it. It is on those rainy, tired, doubtful days that your signature is tested and validated. Anyone can work out when they feel like it. Anyone can go to the gym when they feel energetic. But the winners, the ones who genuinely make a difference, are defined by what they do when no one is cheering and when every emotion inside them screams to quit. Napoleon Hill gave this power another name, persistence. He considered it the most critical factor, the catalyst that turns desire into gold. He wrote, persistence is a state of mind, and therefore can be cultivated. It is not an inborn gift. It is a decision made every day, the decision to honor your contract. He also said, the greatest weakness of mankind lies in the habit of giving up when defeated by temporary defeat. Those bad days are temporary defeats. Your commitment is the only weapon against that habit of giving up. Take a look at the life of a man who shaped the modern world with an unwavering commitment, Thomas Edison. Today, we know him as a genius who brought light to humanity. But we often forget the true nature of that genius. Edison's genius did not lie in a single eureka moment. It lay in a brutal commitment to trial and error. As he struggled to create a commercially viable light bulb, he and his team experimented with thousands of different materials for the filament. Thousands of failures. A young reporter asked him, Mr. Edison, how does it feel to have failed 10,000 times? Edison looked at him and replied with a quote that has gone down in history. I haven't failed 10,000 times. I've found 10,000 ways that won't work. Do you see the power in that answer? It wasn't just optimism. It was a declaration of commitment. Each failed attempt wasn't a reason to give up. It was a step forward, part of the system, a clause in his contract with the future. He was committed to finding the answer, and each failure was simply an indispensable part of that process. Can you imagine? On the 5,000th attempt, when another piece of material burned to ashes, did he feel discouraged? Of course, he was human. But his commitment was more substantial than his emotions. His contract was stronger than his fatigue. He had no choice but to continue, having signed it. That's the difference between an amateur and a professional. Amateurs work when they feel inspired. Professionals work diligently, regardless of the circumstances, because they honor their commitments. Your commitment is your honor. Every time you keep a promise to yourself on a tough day, you're not just getting closer to your goal. You're building your self-esteem. You're strengthening your character. You're proving to yourself that your word matters. So, look at bad days not as a setback, but as an opportunity. A chance to prove that you mean business. A chance to strengthen your will. An opportunity to turn your contract from a piece of paper into a shield of steel. Once you have such a contract, once you have committed a part of yourself, you become an unstoppable force. You have a strong internal drive, a will that is as solid as a rock. But even the strongest ship, with the most determined captain, must understand the ocean it is sailing on. There are waves you can ride, but there are also currents you must learn to ride. This brings us to profound wisdom, an art not of conquering, but of accepting. The art of distinguishing between what we can change and what we must learn to live with. You have signed an ironclad contract with the future. You have an unshakable commitment, an inner drive to execute your system regardless of your emotions. You have become an unstoppable force. But even the strongest ship, with the most determined captain, must understand the ocean it is sailing on. You cannot fight a hurricane. You cannot command the waves to stop. Attempting to do so is not a sign of strength, but instead of arrogance and stupidity. This is one of the most difficult but important lessons on your journey. The art of distinguishing between what you can change and what you must learn to accept. Do an imagination exercise right now. Draw a circle around yourself. Inside that circle is your kingdom. That is where you have complete control. Inside, it is your thoughts, your attitudes, your choices, the efforts you put in, and the actions you take. This is your domain, where you must put all your energy, focus, and will. And then there's all the stuff that lies outside the circle. Outside is the weather. Outside is the economy. Outside lies the past, with all its mistakes and the things that happened. Outside is the thoughts and actions of other people. Outside is the circumstances you were born into. Most of our suffering, frustration, and energy depletion comes from a single mistake. We try to use our power to control things that lie outside the circle. We get angry because it rains. We get frustrated because others don't act the way we want them to. We fret over past mistakes that can't be undone. We waste hours, days, and years fighting a useless battle, a battle we can never win. True happiness and power come from making a conscious decision to put all your energy inside the circle and learn to accept what lies outside calmly. This is not a weak resignation. This is a strategy of wisdom. This is the art of letting go of useless control to seize absolute power. Napoleon Hill touched on the core of this principle when he said, "No one can hurt you without your permission. Other people can do terrible things to you. That's outside your circle. But whether you let those actions define you or destroy your inner peace, that's entirely within your circle." Take a look at the life of a man who faced some of the worst circumstances imaginable. Viktor Frankl. Frankl was a Jewish psychiatrist who was taken to Nazi concentration camps during World War II. He lost everything: his family, his possessions, his book manuscript, and even his name. He was just a number. Everything outside his circle was hell. He had no control over hunger, cold, the brutality of the guards, or whether his fellow prisoners would die tomorrow. In such a depriving situation, he discovered a truth that would change his life, and later, the field of psychology. He realized that while the Nazis could control his body, there was one thing they could never touch. It is the last of the human freedoms: the right to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. While others collapsed into despair, Frankl made a conscious choice. He chose to find meaning in suffering. He decided to help his fellow prisoners, sharing his bread and listening to their stories. He decided to imagine himself freed, standing at a podium and teaching his students the same psychological lessons he was experiencing in the concentration camp. He poured all his energy into the circle. He couldn't change the situation, but he could change himself. And it was that choice that kept him alive, not just physically, but mentally. He later wrote in his classic book, Man's Search for Meaning, "Everything can be taken away from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, the right to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, the right to choose one's path." That's the power of accepting what you cannot change. It doesn't mean you like the situation. It means you refuse to let the situation control you. You stop wasting energy fighting an unchangeable reality and reinvest that energy into building your inner strength. You can't change the past, but you can learn from it. You can't control what people say about you, but you can control whether you believe them. You can't guarantee that you'll never fail, but you can ensure that you'll get back up every time you fall. Stop arguing with reality. You can't win. Instead, learn to work with it. Once you have mastered this art, once you have learned to distinguish between your circle of control and the vast ocean of the uncontrollable, you will feel a new peace and a new strength. However, there is a special kind of burden, a kind of baggage that we often carry around. It is not quite outside the circle, but it does not help what is inside. It is the ghosts of the past, the negative emotions that are outdated. And to be truly free, we need not only to accept the outside world, we must also learn the art of cleaning up the inside world. You have learned one of the most profound wisdom, the art of accepting what you cannot change. You have drawn your circle of power, focused all your energy on what you can control, and learned to be calm in the face of the waves of circumstances. You have found peace with the world. However, we must now embark on an even more important journey. A journey within. Because even if you have made peace with the world, you may still have a civil war going on within yourself. Think of your mind as a garden given to you, with fertile soil and limitless potential. Every day, you have the choice of what to plant in it. But what if that garden is overgrown with weeds? What if the weeds of regret keep growing, entangling your feet? What if the thorns of anger and resentment keep sprouting, making you bleed every time you try to move forward? What if old failures become boulders in the path, blocking the way for new seeds to sprout? You can have the best seeds in the world, ideas, goals, aspirations, but if you don't clean up your garden, they will never have a chance to grow. They will die from a lack of light and nutrients. This is the art of letting go. Letting go is not a weakness. Letting go is not the same as surrendering or forgetting. Letting go is an act of wisdom and strength. It is realizing that holding on to those emotional boulders will only exhaust you on your climb. It is knowing that you cannot build a bright future if you are still holding on to the broken pieces of the past. Napoleon Hill devoted an entire chapter to the importance of mind control. He understood that a negative mind cannot create a positive life. He identified negative emotions such as fear, hatred, and anger as the real poisons. He wrote, "Your mind is sacred ground, and you are under no obligation to let others plant their negative thoughts on it. And the same is true for the negative thoughts you plant in yourself." Letting go is the act of a wise gardener. You pull out the weeds not because you are weak, but because you want to protect your flowers. Take a look at the life of a man who built an empire from the ashes of betrayal and failure. Walt Disney. Before Mickey Mouse and Disneyland, Walt Disney had his first successful character, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. He poured his heart and soul into this character. However, on a trip to New York to negotiate a contract, he was severely cheated by his distributor. Not only did they refuse to give him a raise, but they also informed him that they had hired most of his team of artists and owned the rights to Oswald himself. In an instant, Walt Disney lost everything. His company was on the brink of bankruptcy. His brainchild had been stolen. He sat on a train back to California empty-handed and heartbroken. What could he have done? He could have wallowed in anger and resentment. He could have spent the rest of his life pursuing lawsuits. He could have become bitter, lost faith in humanity, and given up on the animation industry altogether. That would have been a very human reaction. But he didn't. On that fateful train ride, he made a decision. He let go. He let go of Oswald. He let go of his anger at the distributor. He let go of his feelings of being a victim. He accepted that the past was over, and he couldn't change it. And as he emptied his hands of holding on to loss, he freed up space to create something new. And in that emptiness, an idea emerged. A small, happy mouse with round ears. A character he could own completely. A character named Mickey. Letting go of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit was not an act of weakness. It was the most significant strategic move of Walt Disney's career. It freed him from the burden of his past and allowed him to build an empire that was many times greater. Napoleon Hill taught a similar lesson. Every adversity, every failure, every pain carries within it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. But you will never find that seed if you continue to obsess over the adversity itself. Letting go is the act of stopping looking at the dark cloud and starting to look for the silver lining. So, how do you let go? It starts with a conscious decision. Decide that you will no longer allow the past to rent space in your mind without paying. Write down the things that weigh you down. The regrets, the resentments. Look at them, acknowledge them, and then make a choice. Forgive. Forgive others, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. And most importantly, forgive yourself. When you have tidied up your garden, when you have pulled out the weeds and thrown away the rocks, you will feel a strange sense of relief. You will feel more agile, more free. Now your garden is ready. The ground is prepared. You are unburdened and energized. It is time to run. Run as fast as you can toward your future. And to ensure that you never return to that weed-filled garden again, there is one final drastic action you must take. It's like burning bridges behind your back. You have done something audacious. You have cleaned the garden of your mind, pulling out the weeds of regret and throwing away the rocks of resentment. Now you feel light and free, and your inner soil is ready for the planting of great seeds. You are unburdened and energized. It is time to run. Run as fast as you can toward your future. And to ensure that you never, ever return to that weed-filled garden again, there is one final drastic action you must take. It's like burning bridges behind your back. In military history, a classic tactic is employed by the most outstanding generals when facing seemingly unwinnable battles. When a general wants his soldiers to fight with extraordinary strength, to fight to the death, he will sail the ships to the enemy's land. And after all the soldiers have gone ashore, he will give a cold command. Burn the ships. Imagine how those soldiers felt. They looked out to sea and saw their boats, their only way home, engulfed in flames. At that moment, all other options disappeared. There was no way back. There was no hope of a safe retreat. Only one option remained: victory or death. And in that moment of no choice, a primal power, a fierce will to survive, rose within them. They fought not like ordinary soldiers, but like cornered beasts. Now, apply that strategy to your goals. Eliminate the plan Bs. Eliminate the safe escape routes to the mediocre life you're trying to escape. When you have no choice but to move forward, you'll discover a strength, a creativity, a resilience you never knew you had. Napoleon Hill referred to this as the power of a decisive decision. He wrote, "Analyze the records of hundreds of men who have amassed great fortunes, and you will find that every one of them has had the habit of making decisions quickly and changing them slowly, if at all. Burning the ships is the highest form of a decisive decision. It is an act of declaring to the universe, there is no going back. Consider the daring conquest of Spanish explorer Hernán Cortés. In 1519, he led a small army to the coast of Mexico with a seemingly impossible mission: to conquer the mighty Aztec Empire, an empire of hundreds of thousands of warriors. Cortés's men were vastly outnumbered. They were in a strange land, facing a formidable enemy. Fear and mutiny began to spread among the soldiers. Many wanted to return to their ships and return to Spain. What did Cortés do? He knew that as long as there was a way to retreat, the will to fight his soldiers would never reach its peak. So, he made a decision that became legendary. He did not literally burn the ships. He ordered them to be scuttled. He destroyed his own and everyone else's way back. He gathered his men together and said, in effect, "My friends, our ships have sunk. We have only two choices: win and take this land, or die on this shore. Choose." In a single act, he transformed an army on the brink of collapse into an unstoppable force driven by a single goal: survival and victory. He eliminated the third option. As a result, a small army carried out one of the most astonishing conquests in history. That's the power of having no choice. What are those boats in your life? It could be the safe but boring job you're holding on to while dreaming about starting your own business. Burning the boats might mean saving up enough money, planning carefully, and then handing in your resignation. It could be a bad habit you can't break. Burning the boat might mean deleting all social media apps from your phone or throwing away all the junk food in your house. It could be the anonymity. Burning the boats can be about making your goals public to people you trust, creating positive pressure to act. When you have a plan B, you unconsciously don't give 100% of your effort to plan A. A part of your mind is always thinking about that safe way out. But when plan B no longer exists, your entire being, every cell in your body, every neuron in your brain is focused on one thing: how can plan A succeed? Your creativity will explode. You will come up with solutions you never thought of before. You will work with a focus and intensity you have never experienced before. This is an act of absolute faith. Faith in your goal. And more importantly, belief in your ability to find the way. So ask yourself right now, what boat is keeping you from fighting your best? What safe escape route is keeping you stuck in a life of mediocrity? Be brave. Make a decision. Burn the bridge behind you. When you have made this absolute commitment and put all your strength into moving forward, you will feel a powerful energy. But there is a subtle trap that awaits the most determined people. A trap that can slow you down even when you are at your most motivated. It's not laziness or hesitation. Ironically, it comes from a good desire, a desire to do things perfectly. You've done something that few people dare to do. You've burned the bridge behind you. You've made an absolute commitment with no way to back out. Now, your energy, your mind, and your will are all focused in one direction: forward. You feel a strong sense of motivation and a heightened focus. But as soon as you begin to rush down your path, a new enemy appears. This enemy does not roar like fear, nor is it sweet like procrastination. It wears a cloak of virtue and wisdom. It is a friend, a respected counselor. It's called perfectionism, and it is a curse. It is the enemy of progress, the killer of action. It whispers in your ear, seemingly logically, "Wait, this isn't good enough. Let's tweak it a little more. Let's study it a little more. We have to get it perfect before we show it to anyone." And so, you get bogged down, You spend hours, days, and weeks tweaking a tiny detail that no one but you will care about or even notice. You spend so much time perfecting the first chapter of your book that you never get to the second. You try so hard to create a perfect business plan that the market changes before you even get started. Take this to heart. A good enough product released into the world will always beat a perfect masterpiece that stays on paper. Why? Because action creates data. Action creates feedback. Action creates interaction with reality. And it is that data, that feedback, that helps you improve and progress. The golden loop of development, action, data, improvement, can only begin when you dare to finish something and bring it to light. Perfectionism is, at its core, just a clever disguise of fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of criticism. Fear that your work isn't good enough. By never finishing, you protect yourself from those possibilities. You can tell yourself, "Oh, it's not done yet, but it would be great." You live in a safe illusion, but it's a prison of inertia. Napoleon Hill recognized this danger early on. He did not speak directly of perfectionism, but he did speak of its twin, indecision and overanalysis. He wrote, "Don't wait. There will never be a right time. Begin where you are and work with whatever tools you have at hand. Better tools will be found along the way." Those better tools are the data and feedback you receive after taking action. Look at the world that has been shaped by this principle, Silicon Valley, and look at one of its greatest minds, Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn. Hoffman has a quote that has become a guiding principle for thousands of entrepreneurs worldwide. He says, "If you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late." Let that sink in. It's not if your product isn't perfect. It's if you don't feel ashamed. Why? Because he understood that the goal of the first version was not to impress the world with its perfection. The goal of the first version is to start the learning loop. To get something good enough out there, observe how users interact with it, what they like, what they dislike, and what they need. And then use that invaluable data to improve, creating a better second version and then a better third version. LinkedIn, when it first launched, was nothing like the LinkedIn we know today. It had many flaws and several features that weren't yet fully developed. But it was out in the world. It was already collecting data. And that iterative process of launch, learn, improve turned it into a massive professional network with hundreds of millions of users. If Hoffman and his team had waited to create the perfect version, LinkedIn might never have come into existence. Stop thinking of your first product, project, or attempt as the final masterpiece. Think of it as a draft, an experiment, a starting point. Your goal is not perfection. Your goal is progress. Permit yourself to create imperfect things. Permit yourself to make mistakes. Release the curse of perfection and embrace the power of done. Hit publish. Hit send. Get it out there. Because the moment you do, you win. You overcome your fear. You start the learning loop. You step into the arena instead of sitting on the sidelines analyzing. Once you free yourself from the pressure to be perfect from the start, you'll feel an incredible sense of freedom. You'll act more quickly and decisively. But then a new question arises. If I'm not aiming for perfection, what should I be aiming for? How can I make sure I'm making progress? The answer doesn't lie in giant leaps. It lies in the magic of compounding, a simple rule that can produce extraordinary results over time. You did it. You broke the curse of perfection. You permitted yourself to act, to make mistakes, and most importantly, to finish. You stepped into the arena instead of sitting in the stands. But once in the arena, a new question arises. If I'm not aiming for perfection, what should I be aiming for? How can I make sure I'm making progress and not just being pointlessly busy? The answer doesn't lie in giant leaps. It lies in the miracle of accumulation, a simple rule that is one of the most potent forces in the universe. That's the 1% rule. Modern society has programmed us to think in terms of all or nothing. We want to lose 20 pounds in a month. We want to become millionaires overnight. We want to learn a new skill and master it in a week. We try to reach the summit of a mountain. And the result? We stumble, get exhausted, and then give up, telling ourselves that the goal is impossible. But that is the wrong approach. Instead, focus on a much more modest goal, one that seems almost meaningless. Focus on improving yourself, your work, and your relationships by just 1% every day. Only 1%. It doesn't sound like much. What's 1%? It's almost imperceptible. But this is where the magic begins. The magic of compound interest, a concept that Albert Einstein is said to have called the eighth wonder of the world. If you improve 1% every day after a year, you will not only be 365% better, the power of compounding will make you almost 38 times better than when you started. Think about that. Nearly 38 times stronger, brighter, healthier. On the other hand, if you decline by 1% every day, taking the easy path, you won't just get a little worse. After a year, you'll be back to almost zero. Small, consistent changes add up to huge results. Think of an airplane taking off from Los Angeles to New York. If the pilot had just shifted the nose of the plane 3.5 degrees south, a barely perceptible change, the plane wouldn't have landed in New York. It would have landed in Washington, D.C. It's the small 1% choices you make every day that are shaping the trajectory of your life. Reading 10 pages a day may not seem like much, but after a year, you've read more than 10 books. Running 15 minutes a day may not seem like much, but after a year, you've built a foundation of health that money can't buy. Napoleon Hill understood the power of this compounding. He didn't discuss the 1%, but he did talk about its core principle. He wrote, "Great oaks grow from small acorns." Remember this, and don't be discouraged if your achievements seem slow at first. The 1% rule is about nurturing your acorn every day, trusting that it will grow into a great tree. Take a look at the life of someone who has mastered this art perfectly, not in business or sports, but in the rigorous creative field. Legendary comedian Jerry Seinfeld. Seinfeld is one of the most successful comedians of all time. What's his secret? Is it natural talent? Partly. But his real secret weapon is a system based on the 1% rule. He calls it, "Don't break the chain." As a young comedian, he realized that the key to improvement wasn't writing perfect jokes, but writing consistently. So he bought an extensive wall calendar and a red marker. His goal was simple. Every day, he had to write at least one new joke. Just one. When he finished, he would mark that day's date on the calendar with a big red X. After a few days, he had a string of X's, and then his job was no longer to write a joke. His career became, "Don't break the string." Do you see that subtle but powerful shift in mindset? He's not pressured to be funny. He's pressured to be consistent. He's focusing on the system, not the outcome. Each X is a 1% improvement for him. It's a tangible testament to his commitment. Year after year, that string of XS grew longer. And with it, his repertoire of jokes, his showmanship, and his confidence grew exponentially. He didn't become a legend overnight. He became a legend over thousands of days of not breaking the chain. That's the magic of compound interest in action. So stop looking for breakthroughs. Stop hunting for magic solutions. Instead, ask yourself this simple question: what can I do today to be 1% better? It's as simple as drinking an extra glass of water. It may take 5 minutes to meditate. It could be learning a new word. It may be time to send that email you've been putting off. Please do it. And acknowledge it. Start your own X series. Fall in love with the process of accumulating small victories. Because it's those victories, when strung together, that make up an extraordinary life. Once you master the 1% rule, you'll find that making progress becomes much easier and more natural. But you can make it even easier. You can create an environment where improving by 1% isn't a struggle, but a default option. And this brings us to your next role. Not just a captain, not just a gardener, but an architect of your environment. You have discovered one of the best-kept secrets of success: the magic of compound interest, the 1% rule. You have understood that it is not the giant leaps, but the small, consistent steps every day that create extraordinary lives. But now, let me ask you a question. Are there days when it feels challenging to do that 1%? Are there days when it takes all your willpower to do that one little thing you said you would do? If the answer is yes, then it's because you're fighting an unnecessary war. You're wasting your most precious resource. That is the will. We often think of willpower as a moral quality, an unlimited mental strength. However, the truth is that willpower is more like a phone battery. Every morning, you wake up with a full battery, and every decision you make and every temptation you resist drains a little bit of that battery. You use your willpower not to eat that piece of cake. You use your willpower to force yourself to focus instead of scrolling through social media. You use your willpower to resist the numerous minor distractions that arise throughout the day. And at the end of the day, when you need your willpower most to do the essential things, your battery is dead. So what's the solution? Stop relying on willpower. Instead, become an architect of your environment. Don't waste your energy fighting unnecessary temptations. Design an environment where temptations don't exist. Design an environment where the path of least resistance leads to your success. If you want to eat healthy, don't try to use your willpower to fight the ice cream in the fridge every night. Just don't buy it in the first place. Fill your fridge with healthy foods. When you're hungry, your easiest choice is your best choice. If you want to focus on work, don't put your phone right on your desk and hope your willpower is strong enough not to touch it. Please put it in another room. Create a physical barrier between you and your biggest distraction. This is not a sign of weakness. This is a sign of strategic intelligence. You acknowledge the truth about human nature and use it to your advantage, rather than fighting against it in vain. Napoleon Hill emphasized the importance of controlling your environment, particularly your social environment. He called it the mastermind principle. He wrote, "No one has ever achieved great success in life without sacrifice, and no one has ever maintained success without the harmonious cooperation of others." He understood that the people you associate with and the ideas you are exposed to shape who you become. Choosing your friends, your partners, and your mentors with intention is an act of designing your social environment. And this principle extends to every aspect of life. Take a look at the life of one of the greatest investors, a financial world sage, Warren Buffett. Why did one of the wealthiest and most powerful men on the planet choose to live his entire life in Omaha, Nebraska, a quiet city in the American Midwest, instead of in the world's financial center, New York? It was a deliberate architectural decision. Buffett understood that Wall Street was a noisy environment, noisy from the daily headlines, noisy from rumors and short-term predictions, loud from the emotions of the crowd, from greed and fear. He knew that if he were there, his willpower would be depleted every day, fighting those distractions and keeping himself from being swept away by the impulsive decisions of the market. So, what did he do? He designed his environment. He chose to stay in Omaha, where he could maintain emotional distance from the situation, where he could read, reflect, and make long-term decisions based on his fundamentals, unaffected by the madness of the crowd. He built a fortress of rationality, and that fortress protected him and his investments for decades. He didn't try to be the strongest man in a chaotic environment. He intelligently eliminated the chaos in the first place. You can do it too. Become a ruthless designer of your life. Take a look at your workspace. Is it designed to help you focus? Or is it full of distractions? Take a look at your phone screen. Is it designed to serve your purpose? Or is it a trap set for you by endless notifications and apps? Look at the people you spend the most time with. Do they lift you? Or do they drag you down? Engineer your life so that success becomes the default option. Make good things easy and bad things hard. Add friction to the habits you want to break, and reduce friction to the habits you want to build. Once you have built such an environment, a fortress for yourself, you will find that implementing the 1% rule is no longer a struggle. It becomes natural, almost automatic. Now, you have a perfectly designed fortress. You have a system that works. You have an ironclad commitment. Everything is ready. But what about the work itself? What about the repetitive hours inside that fortress? What happens when the novelty wears off and work becomes boring? How do you keep moving forward when the initial motivation wears off, even in a perfect environment? That's when you have to learn an even deeper art. Not just doing the work, but loving the process itself. You have become an architect. You have built a fortress of focus, an environment designed to make success the default option. Everything is set. Your willpower battery is protected. Your system is clear. But now, we have to talk about what goes on inside that fortress. We need to discuss the work itself, about the long, repetitive hours when it's just you and your task. What happens when the initial novelty wears off? What happens when motivation runs out, even in a perfect environment? What happens when work becomes boring? This is where most people stop. They think boredom is a sign that they are on the wrong path. They believe that if they are genuinely passionate, their work will always be interesting and engaging. It's an illusion. Everyone loves a moment of triumph. Everyone loves standing on the podium, receiving a medal, and being applauded. But it's just a moment. A successful life is not built on moments. A different love defines the true champion, the true artist, and the great creator. A love much deeper and quieter. They are the ones who love the solitary 5 a.m. training runs. They are the ones who love the hours spent alone in a room, facing a blank page or a line of broken code. They are the ones who love the feeling of muscle fatigue after a grueling workout. They learn to love the process of trying. Find beauty in repetition. Enjoy boredom because boredom is not emptiness. It is a sign that you are doing deep work. It is a meditative state where you are entirely absorbed in the task, where time seems to disappear, and your skill is honed in silence. When you love the journey, every day is a victory. You no longer have to wait for a reward in the distant future. The act of doing the work is the reward, and then the destination is just a matter of time. Napoleon Hill touched on the essence of this when he discussed burning desire. He wrote, "When a man desires something so much that he is willing to stake his entire future on a single turn to get it, he is sure to win." When you have such a desire, it completely changes your perception of work. The practice is no longer practice. It becomes a ritual, a necessary act to feed that desire. Take a look at the life and philosophy of one of the greatest warriors on the basketball court, a man who turned training into an art, Kobe Bryant. We've all seen Kobe's game-winning shots, the moments when he flies through the air and makes the winning shot at the last second. They're flashy moments, but what makes them so isn't showy at all. It is built on the Mamba mentality, a life philosophy driven by a relentless pursuit of constant improvement. Kobe didn't just love practice, he was obsessed with it. There are stories of him arriving at 3 a.m., shooting hundreds of shots in the dark, and only leaving when the first teammates started arriving. He would obsessively review video games, analyzing every move of his opponents and himself, looking for the slightest advantage. For Kobe, the process was not a means to an end. The process was the end. He found joy in perfecting a shot over and over again. He found satisfaction in discovering a slight weakness in his technique and correcting it. He loved the feeling of sore muscles because it was proof that he was getting stronger. A reporter once asked him if he felt like such intense training was a burden. Kobe replied, in essence, that he didn't understand the question. For him, it wasn't a burden, it was who he was. It was what he loved. He loved the process of getting better. That's the difference. When you learn to love the process, you will never have to look for motivation again. Motivation will come from the act of doing the work itself. You will no longer struggle with procrastination because you will look forward to sitting down and doing your job. Change the story you tell yourself. Instead of saying, I have to do this to achieve X, say, I am doing this because it helps me become the person I want to be. Enjoy the feeling of deep focus. Find satisfaction in completing a difficult task. Celebrate the small victories along the way, rather than waiting for the ultimate victory. When you do that, you reach a new level. You are no longer a chaser of success. You become the embodiment of success every day, in every action you take. Now, you have a love for the process. You enjoy every step of the journey. But life is not always a straight line. Even when you do everything right, even when you love every effort you make, sometimes the results are not what you expected. Sometimes you will stumble. Sometimes you will fail. And when that happens, how do you react? Will you let that failure define you? Or will you see it as something else? Something much more valuable. You have learned one of the deepest secrets of great people: to love the process, to enjoy boredom, and to find joy in the daily effort itself. You have turned work into a ritual, an act of devotion. But life isn't always a beautiful symphony. Even if you do everything right and love your efforts, there will be days when the results don't turn out as you expected. There will be days when you stumble. There will be days when you fail. And when that moment comes, your reaction will determine everything. From a young age, we are taught to fear failure. We see it as a complete stop, a blemish on our report card, evidence of our inadequacy. We obsess over it, we run from it, and when it happens, we let it define us. Today, I want you to transform your relationship with failure completely. Look at failure not as a judge, but as a scientist. Failure is not a life sentence for your abilities. It is simply a set of data, a very valuable set of data that tells you that approach didn't work. That's it. It doesn't say you didn't work. It says the method didn't work. What would you do with that data? A child would cry and give up. An emotionally mature person, a true warrior, would do what scientists do. They would collect that data, spread it out on a table, and analyze it objectively, without judgment. What went wrong? Why didn't it work? What variable do I need to change? And then they readjust their course and try again with a more innovative strategy. Successful people are not those who never fail. That's a myth. Successful people are those who learn from failure the fastest. They have the shortest recovery time. They don't waste energy on regret or shame. They mine the lesson, pull the diamond from the rubble, and move on, stronger and wiser. Napoleon Hill spent his life studying people who turned failure into a launching pad. He wrote one of the most inspirational quotes of all time. Every adversity, every failure, every pain carries within it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Failure is that adversity, and the seed of benefit is the data, the lesson it brings. But that seed will not sprout on its own. You must be the one to discover it, cultivate it through analysis, and apply it through new action. Hill also makes a clear distinction between temporary failure and permanent failure. He says that failure only becomes permanent when you accept it as such. Take a look at the life of a man who redefined American industry by treating failure like a great teacher. Henry Ford. Before the Ford name became synonymous with automobiles, Henry Ford was an expert in failure. His first automobile company, the Detroit Automobile Company, was founded in 1899. It failed and folded after just over a year. He never produced a single commercial vehicle. Did he give up? Number. He saw it as data. He learned that the cars he designed were too expensive and the manufacturing process was too slow. He got up and started a second company, the Henry Ford Company. This time, he ran into trouble. He clashed with his investors over vision. They aimed to produce luxury cars for the affluent. He wanted to make cars for the masses. Eventually, he was forced out of the company that bore his name by his investors. That company was later renamed Cadillac. It was a double failure, a public humiliation. Most people would have given up after such a failure, but Henry Ford didn't. He saw it as data. He learned that he had to have complete control over his vision and could not depend on investors who didn't share his vision. And then, armed with two invaluable data sets from two failures, he founded a third company, the Ford Motor Company. This time, he got the formula right. He focused on creating a simple, reliable, affordable car for the average person. He invented the assembly line, a revolution that transformed the world of manufacturing. And his Model T put America on 4 wheels. Henry Ford's great success was not built on a single brilliant idea. It was built on the ashes of previous failures. Each failure was a lesson, a data set, a necessary stepping stone. That is the attitude you need to have. When a business fails, it's not a judgment on your business ability. It's data about the market, about the product, about the marketing strategy. When a relationship breaks up, it's not a judgment on your worth as a person. It's about data, about compatibility, about communication, and what you need in a partner. Stop personalizing failure. Objectify it. Become a scientist in the laboratory of your own life. Once you change your relationship with failure, you will no longer fear it. You will see it as a necessary and even desirable part of the growth process. You will act more boldly because you know that the worst outcome is not the end, but just a new lesson. Now, you have a new attitude. You see each failure, each success, each experience as a brick, a piece of the puzzle. But for what? You are not collecting all this data, these lessons, these bricks randomly. You are using them as tools, a sculptor's tools. And the work of art you are creating is who you are. You have completely changed your relationship with failure. You no longer see it as a judgment, but as a valuable data set. a strict yet fair teacher. You have gathered lessons, bricks, from the rubble of failed attempts. But now, an important question arises. What will you do with all those bricks? What will you collect them for? The answer is that you are not collecting them randomly. You are using them as tools, a sculptor's tools. And the great work of art that you are creating, the masterpiece that you are sculpting every day, is you. Here's one of the most liberating truths you'll ever hear. You don't find who you want to be. You don't go looking for the best version of yourself as if it's hiding somewhere. You build that person. Imagine yourself as a sculptor standing in front of a rough block of marble. That block is you today, with all your potential, your strengths, and your imperfections that need to be chiseled away. Inside your mind is a transparent image, a vision of what a perfect statue would look like. That statue is your ideal version of yourself, the person you aspire to become. And then you start working. Every action you take is a chisel. Every decision you make is a cut. Every good habit you develop is a smoothing of the surface. Every time you overcome laziness, you are chipping away at the excess. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you are sharpening the edges. Want to be disciplined? Don't wait to feel disciplined. Act disciplined. Get up early. Get things done. Keep your promises. Want to be a writer? Don't wait for divine inspiration. Be a writer. Write every day, even if it's just one page. Want to be a confident person? Don't wait for someone to compliment you. Act like a confident person. Stand up straight, speak clearly, and do things that scare you. Your actions will come first, and your beliefs and identity will follow. This is the core principle that Napoleon Hill discovered. He called it applied faith. It is not blind, passive faith. Faith is expressed through action. He wrote, "Faith is a state of mind which can be produced or caused by repeated affirmations or instructions to the subconscious mind through the principle of autosuggestion. And the most potent way to autosuggest is through consistent action. You are suggesting to yourself that you are that person by acting like that person." Take a look at the life of a man who sculpted himself, a man who turned his body and life into a work of art. Arnold Schwarzenegger. When Arnold was a boy growing up in a small village in Austria, he had a vision. He saw an image of a champion bodybuilder, a man with a body as perfect as the Greek gods. His rock was a skinny body, but his vision was crystal clear. And then he started chiseling. Every day he went to the gym. Every lift, every flex was more than just a physical exercise. It was a deliberate chiseling. He once said that he visualized his biceps as a mountain, and with each exercise, he was making that mountain taller. He was sculpting the statue he saw in his mind. After conquering the world of bodybuilding, he had a new vision: to become a top Hollywood movie star. Everyone laughed at him. They said he was too big, his name was too difficult to pronounce, and his Austrian accent was too thick. But Arnold didn't find the opportunity. He built it. He acted like a movie star. He took acting classes obsessively. He learned to kill his accent. He took the most minor roles to learn. He carved out the image of an action star, and Hollywood recognized it. You are not a block of stone. You are the sculptor. You have the power to choose the final shape of your work. Don't let others take a chisel and shape you to their liking. Don't let circumstances shape you into something you don't want to be. Take up the chisel of action. Take up the hammer of determination. Every day, ask yourself, how is my action today carving a statue? Is it making the lines more refined, or is it creating new cracks? It is a process that requires patience. A sculptor does not create a masterpiece overnight. He works in silence, concentrating, chipping away at it bit by bit, day after day. But to be able to do such work, which requires deep concentration and long-term vision, the sculptor needs one thing. He cannot work in the middle of a noisy market. He cannot sculpt when his mind is distracted by 1,000 voices. He needed space, a space of silence, a place where he could reconnect with his vision, listen to the voice of the rock itself, and re-energize himself for tomorrow's chiseling. You have become a sculptor. Every day, you take the chisel of action and the hammer of determination, carving a greater version of yourself. You have learned to turn failure into data and action into identity. But a great sculptor cannot work in a noisy marketplace. He cannot create a masterpiece when his mind is distracted by 1,000 voices, 1,000 demands. He needs a studio, a space of silence, a place where he can reconnect with his vision, listen to the voice of the stone itself, and recharge his energy for tomorrow's chisel. And that sculpture studio is the silence of your mind. We live in a world that screams for our attention. Your phone screen screams with notifications. Your social media feeds scream with opinions and comparisons. Your inbox screams with requests and tasks. The outside world is a cacophony of chaos, a never-ending storm of information. And in that storm, we lost something incredibly precious: the ability to hear ourselves. So, in such a world, silence and solitude are not emptiness or boredom. They are an act of rebellion. They are a declaration of independence from the noise. They are a source of invaluable strength, an oasis where you can recharge and find your way. Take time each day to be alone with your thoughts. No screens, no podcasts, no distractions. It could be 15 minutes in the morning before the family wakes up. It could be a walk alone in the park at noon. It could be a few moments sitting quietly in the car before you get home from work. Create a sacred space for silence, because it's in those quiet moments that the real magic happens. That's when you can hear the voice of intuition. Napoleon Hill referred to this connection as infinite intelligence. He believed that the most fantastic ideas and the most creative solutions come not from intense logical analysis, but from moments of mental relaxation when the voice of the subconscious, what he called the sixth sense, has a chance to speak. Your intuition is your inner compass, but you can't hear it if you're standing in the middle of a rock concert. That's when you can reprioritize. In the noise of everyday life, everything seems urgent, but in the silence, you can distinguish between what is truly important and what is merely urgent. You can see the big picture instead of getting caught up in the details. And most importantly, it's where you can reconnect with why you started. You can reconnect with your burning desire. The hustle and bustle of life can make us forget our deepest purpose. Silence is where you add fuel to that fire, reminding yourself of the vision that inspired you to walk this path in the first place. Take a look at the life of one of the greatest minds to have ever lived, a man who completely changed the way we view the universe: Albert Einstein. Einstein did not develop his theory of relativity in a noisy laboratory amidst endless meetings. His most revolutionary ideas came in moments of silence and deep contemplation. He was famous for his habit of taking long walks alone. He would wander for hours with no particular purpose, just letting his mind wander. It was during those quiet walks that he conducted his famous thought experiments. He asked himself, what would happen if I rode on a beam of light? It was these questions born in that quiet, unconstrained by what was known, that led him to discoveries that shook the foundations of physics. He did not try to force the answer. He created a quiet space where the answer could come to him. He understood that quiet was not an absence, but the presence of a space for great things to grow. You don't have to be Einstein to apply this principle. Think of silence as the most crucial strategy meeting of your day. A meeting between you and your best self. In that meeting, you don't talk much. You listen. Listen to the ideas that are trying to surface. Listen to the lessons that the experiences of the day are trying to teach you. Listen to the voice of purpose that is calling to you. When you step out of that quiet space, you will feel a distinct difference. You will feel more focused, calmer, and more determined. You will no longer be a leaf blown around in the storm. You will be the center of the storm, quiet and strong. Now, you have it all. You have a clear vision. You have an unwavering commitment. You have a system for execution. You have the right attitude toward failure. And you have a quiet space to recharge and reconnect with your inner compass. You are fully equipped. Everything is ready. Only one thing remains. Not another plan. It's not another secret. But a moment. The moment all this preparation has been leading up to. The moment of ultimate power. You have found your workshop. You have learned to enter a space of silence where you can recharge, listen to your intuition, and reconnect with your inner compass. So you have it all. You have a clear vision. You have an unwavering commitment. You have a system for execution. You have the right attitude toward failure. You have a quiet space to recharge. You are fully equipped. You are ready. But all of them, all of the principles, all of the stories, all of the philosophies we've gone through together, they all have one thing in common. They're all worthless. Yes, you heard that right. Worthless, until you take the first step. All these preparations are just potential energy, like an arrow that has been placed on the bowstring. But that energy will forever remain possible if the archer never decides to let go. And that moment of letting go, that moment of turning all that you have learned into action, that moment of turning potential into kinetic power, is the moment of ultimate power. And the most incredible human power, the power to activate anything, lies in a single word, a simple word that holds a universe of possibilities. The word is now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when I have more time, not when I have more money, and certainly not when you feel ready. Let me tell you a secret. Readiness is an illusion. It's a horizon that you can never reach. You will never feel 100% ready. There will always be a little doubt. There will always be a reason to wait. Great people don't wait to feel prepared. They act, and readiness follows. The same goes for clarity. You don't need a perfect map in every detail before you set out. Clarity is a reward for action, not a prerequisite for it. You gain clarity by walking, by stumbling, by adjusting your course. The path is revealed to you when you dare to walk, not when you stand still and stare. Napoleon Hill spent his life crystallizing a core message, and it resonates most powerfully right here, right now. He wrote, "Don't wait. There will never be a right time. Start where you are and work with whatever tools you have at hand. Better tools will be found along the way." Take a look at the life of a media legend, a man who did over 50,000 interviews and became a cultural icon, Larry King. When Larry King started his career, he was not a trained journalist. His real name was Lawrence Zeiger, a young man from Miami working odd jobs. He had a burning desire to work in radio. Finally, a small radio station manager gave him a chance. On his first day on the job, just minutes before he was due to go on air, The director said to him, "Zyger doesn't sound excellent. You need a different name." He saw a newspaper on his desk with an ad for King's Wholesale Liquor. The director said, "How about Larry King?" "That sounds good. You'll be Larry King." And then he pushed Larry into the studio. The on-air light came on. Larry King sat there in front of the microphone, and he was speechless. He was scared. He wasn't ready. He didn't have a script. He didn't have experience. His heart was pounding. There was a long silence. The director said to him, "Say it." In that terrifying moment, Larry King made a decision. He chose now. He leaned into the microphone, and the first words he said to the world were, "Good morning. I was scared last night." And then he just talked. He talked about his fear, about how it was his first time on air. And that honesty connected with the audience. His legendary career spanning more than half a century was born not from a perfect plan, but from a moment of fearless action. He didn't wait to be ready. He started, and then he was ready. Your story is the same. Everything you need, you already have. The strength to overcome difficulties, the will to keep your promises to yourself, the freedom to choose your path. All of these are not things you have to search for in the outside world. They have always been inside you, like a sleeping giant, waiting for your command to awaken. You don't need anyone else's permission. You don't need society's approval. You don't need approval from family or friends. The only person who has the power to permit you to start the life you deserve is you. So, this is your moment of power. Give yourself that permission and begin right now.